Welcome to Handmade History. Welcome to our very first episode of Handmade History.
I'm Sonia.
And I'm Alicia.
And we're hoping on this show to share some of the stories behind things that are handmade, different practices, people, and materials.
And I thought we would start off by saying a little bit why we're each doing this. So I think I had the idea to do this kind of podcast maybe a year ago, but the thing that really motivated me is I went on a field trip with my kiddo, and it was a local history field trip, and there's a lot of mills, or there used to be a lot of mills near where we live, and the teacher took out this small wooden thing and was asking the kids what it is, and there were various guesses like knitting needles and like looms, and my kid was like, "That's a shuttle," and I was like, yes. And I've really never been prouder, and I thought, I think it'd be awesome if all kids knew what a shuttle was. So I hope to just share some of the stories about history that aren't kind of like big man stories, that are more smaller stories about stuff that's in your home and that's also really important. Yeah. So Sonia, why did you agree to do this with me?
Well, I love podcasts. That's the big one. And
Me too.
We are like such a crafty family.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it would be fun to like talk about that and like learn more about the history of the crafts that we do, because we have like family history, but also to like learn about other crafts that we're not as familiar with. And I also like hidden pockets of history.
Hidden pockets. It's very good. It's good because pockets. Good job. So maybe we could share so that people can tell us apart some of our similarities and differences.
Yeah, so I mean, we're sisters. We have the same last name.
We do.
We grew up in the same town.
We did.
And we both like to craft quite a bit.
But we do have some differences. We are from different generations. I am a millennial, and Sonia, you are Gen Z.
I am.
We have different favorite crafts, I think. My favorite craft is sewing clothes, but I also like knitting.
I would have to go embroidery.
Embroidery. Oh, that is also a very good one.
Yeah, I have sewn clothes, but I get frustrated. But
yeah.
I like embroidery.
You like embroidery or cross stitch?
Cross stitch mostly.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I thought maybe we could each share our favorite Taylor Swift song off of Tortured Poets Department. So, Sonia, what's your favorite?
I had to think about this. I was between like LOML,
Mm-hmm.
So Long London, or I Can Do It With a Broken Heart. But I think I'll go with LOML.
All right.
I have trouble saying the name.
None of those are my favorite, but I like them because I like Taylor Swift. But my favorite is "But Daddy, I Love Him" by like a mile.
I didn't like it when I first heard it, but it really grew on me. And now it's like a very good bop, I think.
I'm obsessed. Obsessed. All right. So showtime. So what's our first show going to be about, So?
We are talking about Jessie Young and the Radio Homemakers.
Yes, I came across Jessie Young while I was reading this book called Two for the Road by Jaden Michael Stern, which is a memoir by the authors of Road Food. So before there was Yelp, there were these guides, road food guides, which the Sterns wrote, and they are like diners, drive-ins, and dives. They're all the little backwoods places that you can find to eat at. And so they mentioned Jessie Young, and they said she was the first of the Radio Homemakers. And I was like, Radio Homemakers? I had never heard of them. And they also shared a recipe for Jessie Young's chocolate cake. So just to give a bit of background about what radio homemaking is, it began in 1926, and it lasted until the 1970s, maybe 1980s. And basically what it was women hosting their own radio shows about life at home. They included recipes and advice, and they also offered like little glimpses into their home life. So the women would often record at home, and sometimes their kids would like wander into the kitchen and, say hello or chat. And it began with 2 radio stations in Shenandoah, Iowa, that were both started by seed manufacturers. They were Earl May, who ran KMA. He started KMA. And Henry Field, who started KF&F.
Was this to, sell more seeds?
To sell more seeds? Yeah, it was like starting a radio station. So the 2 men were just super interested in radio. They were like, it was really exciting at the time. But also, yeah, they did hope to sell more seeds. A lot of the seeds were sold via mail order at the time because roads were not like super well developed. And so... they would have ads for their seeds. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So important part, radio homemakers were paid a living wage. Laura Driftmeyer made $780 in 1940 or $15,600 in today's money. And 1,144, hard to say, in 1946, or $18,400 in today's money. And Jessie Young made $1,400 in 1942, or almost $27,000 today. And in 1941, she made $3,600, or $77,000 today. And this money also paid for cookie supplies baked for visitors. Sorry, what does that mean?
So the Radio Homemakers would also host people in their homes, and they would often bake cookies for the people.
Oh, like during the shows, or just like...
Like after, because they became very popular, and people wanted to come visit them.
That's fun. That's wild.
They would bake cookies for them. So an interesting aspect about these Radio Homemakers is that they were really entrepreneurs. So... the women got these jobs at seed manufacturers and or were given them by the seed manufacturers who had started these radio stations. But then they could also start their own kind of independent ventures after they became hosts. So many of them had their own newsletters or magazines, which they wrote and printed themselves. And a lot of the Radio Homemakers had national followings after about a decade. And they would send like tens of thousands of these newsletters each month.
Radio homemaking was very popular in the Midwest and beyond, and brought in hundreds of dollars each week in advertising.
Yeah, so they started out as being just like a way to expand the seed company's business, but they started becoming kind of their own business, which is interesting. So some fun facts. Earl May and Henry Fields each placed in the world's most popular radio announcer contest by Radio Digest, which was a magazine. Field won second in 1925 in the entire world, and May won first in 1926. And this is because AM signals went really far, and there was not that much competition. So Shenandoah, Iowa was like radio hubbub in this period of time.
And Jessie Young was the first popular radio homemaker, but Minnie Miller had a show around the same time. And radio homemakers differed from the home economists in that they were presented as peers, not as experts. And they often included reader letters, suggestions, and recipes in their shows and magazines.
Yeah. So the reason that radio homemakers, who were all women, had the chance to be on radio at this time, it was kind of like the confluence of a few things that worked out for them. So one was that radio was a big business and a lot of people wanted to get in on it. So the May Seed Company actually added 1 million mailing list subscribers in the year that they started KMA, and KF&F brought in $1,200 each month in 1927, which is about $20,000 in today's money, from their radio station, from ads. Radio station owners at the time were also required by like federal regulation to run a full program. So basically the government was trying to deter like random Joe Schmo from setting up a radio station in his garage and just like broadcasting for an hour a day and taking like some call letters or taking a channel on an AM frequency. So the rule was you had to run a full slate of programs. So people wanted to get in on this big business, and then they also had to come up with like a lot of programming. And then the reason that Radio Homemakers, one major reason, is because both Earl May and Henry Fields really valued and encouraged and recruited women to work at their stations. That was true of the men who ran it. And then also there was a woman named Doris Murphy who held a lot of positions at KMA who would actively recruit other women to be radio homemakers and to get jobs in radio.
So radio homemaking was typically they would have to prepare for each show, gathering recipes, letters, and advice, preparing advertisements by testing and writing copy. Some hosts even went to companies to interview makers about their products, and then they had to go on air. Many had their own microphone setups at home, and they also did this with children as there wasn't any affordable childcare in Shenandoah, Iowa in 1926. They would also host visitors who came through, sometimes by the busload. One host had her living room carpet replaced by Earl May because it was worn thin by visitors. And they also would then bake them the homemade cookies that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, those.
Buy soft drinks. And they also organized and ran Jubilee and Homemaker Days once a month, which were big live events that drew crowds of thousands of people. And they would read and respond on air, often in a newsletter, to hundreds of letters each day. It says Jessie Young received 3,000 to 4,000 letters per week.
Yeah, so they were super popular. Radio homemakers were popular really right from the beginning, and they became even more popular up through the 1940s and 50s. In 1946, there was a national survey done that found that home ec programs, including Radio Homemakers shows, ranked third, but the other two that were in front of them were Disc Jockey, like a music program, and the Musical Clock Wake Up program, which was like an alarm. So they were third, but behind, I don't know, kind of didn't count. And then by the late 40s, Radio Homemaker shows were everywhere, not just in Shenandoah, Iowa. And like I said, they became very popular into the 50s, too.
And Betty Crocker was a fabricated radio homemaker created by General Mills. And she received 4,000 letters each day.
Yeah, kind of fun. I didn't know that either. Yeah. So I thought we would talk a little bit about Jessie Young because she was the first most popular radio homemaker, and she really paved the way for a lot of other radio homemakers. So Jessie Susenka was born on February 7th, 1900 in Essex, Iowa, to Rose Kuhel Susenka and George Susenka. Her mother, Rose, was the youngest daughter of an immigrant from the Czech Republic, and his last name was Kuhel. Her father was quite poor, and Rose had to work from the age of 7.
Jessie also had to work from a young age after her father left the family. They worked together doing things like laundry and baking to support themselves. Jessie also sold things like magazines, books, bluing, which is a laundry chemical, and her mother's baked goods to contribute to the house.
And I read in different places that Jessie did or did not graduate from high school, but regardless, after she was of an age to graduate high school, she moved to Shenandoah, Iowa, which was just 7 miles south, and began working at the Henry Field Seed Company. A fun little Henry Field side story. So Henry Field started investing in seeds at the age of 8 when he bought a bunch of pansy seeds, and his first customer was his aunt. So I thought that was delightful. While Jessie was working at the seed company, she met and married Floyd Young, and they both began to work at a bank in town. I believe it was called Shenandoah Bank, and Jessie eventually became head bookkeeper there. But then the stock market crashed and the bank closed.
And the day she lost her job, she walked down the street and ran into Earl May. He asked her what she would do, and she said she didn't know. She had lost her job, so he told her to come to work at KMA. And Jessie and her husband had been part of early broadcasts by KMA. They had been in the very first one, which was actually in Omaha. They were singers in the church choir.
Yeah, so Jessie Young began broadcasting her Radio Homemaker show. It had several names, including Stitch and Chat and A Visit with Jessie Young. The content always included little bits about her life, and sometimes her children would wander in while she was recording, especially on Saturdays. Her show was immensely popular. People listened to it like every single day that it was on, and it was on like 5 or 6 days each week. She moved to Philadelphia for a year with her family and broadcasted there, then moved back to Nebraska, and she broadcasted from Lincoln. And when she returned, I found some fun ads in the newspaper that said, "Good news, Jessie Young is back." And then another one that said, "Jessie Young is back," with 2 exclamation points. She also would spend summers in Red Feathers, Colorado. And in the 1940s, she would record tapes and send them back to the radio station to be played from there. But I thought this was really adorable. Listeners complained that they couldn't hear her as well when she was in Colorado. They didn't realize she was recording on tapes.
Wow.
Isn't that great? And then another fun little fact about Red Feathers, Colorado, Jessie Young got so much mail while she was there that Red Feathers had to begin their daily mail service.
Wow. So she did not work from a script, and she included 12 to 13 commercials in each hour-long program. She said, "I sold cosmetics, roses, fish, prunes, horse collars, harnesses, jackets, boots, jam, tire, blankets, and dress goods, but I never sold anything I didn't believe in. Listeners can tell right away if someone isn't being honest with them." She started her own magazine in 1946 after her friend and fellow radio homemaker Leanna Driftmeyer, who was Henry Fields' sister, told her to. She ran the super popular Kitchen Clatter magazine, and she stopped broadcasting in 1955.
Yeah, so Leanna Driftmeyer ran the Kitchen Clatter magazine, and that one was, like, incredibly popular, and so I think she must have told Jessie, like, this is a great way for you to make money. So Jessie had hers. So Jessie's magazine ran until 1980, and she did all the work with her son, like, apparently right up until the very end, except for they had some part-time help with mailing. The magazine had 10,000 subscribers and went to all 50 states in the year 1971. And Jessie Young also published 20 cookbooks and sewing books.
Then, after summering in Colorado, she moved there permanently in 1966 and ran Young's Outpost, a shopping cafe, with her children. And she died on September 12, 1987.
And a highlight of her enduring popularity. So after she retired to Colorado, she went back to Shenandoah in 1975 for a 50th anniversary celebration of KMA. And she was interviewed on air by Warren Nielsen. And the interview was supposed to be 15 minutes long, but it ran 45 minutes, and 2 programs had to be canceled for it that day. So I thought that was kind of pretty cool. And she said, "When I started, women were home and radio was something new." That's, I think, why she thought she was super popular. And I think just her life and her experience kind of encapsulates that radio homemaking was this unique moment for women, especially rural women, in this time period.
So there's some pretty significant things for women because of this. The show definitely improved a lot of things for listeners. So a publicity memo from 1940 stated, "People who can afford electricity but cannot afford electric refrigerators benefit from the program because Jessie gave them frequent recipes for canning and smoking meats."
Yeah, so it also offered, besides like practical improvements, friendship or kinship to isolated women. The big source that I found for this was this really great master's thesis by Lori Lynn Rolk called Sisters of the Skillet. And in her introduction, she tells a sad story about a woman who wrote into one of the radio homemakers because she was suffering. She was abused by her husband, and she couldn't really escape. And so her being able to write to the radio homemakers, and the radio homemaker wrote her back, it gave her like some solace and hopefully helped ease her suffering. Because at this time, women, especially rural women, were really limited. Like physically, women were limited. Not everybody, very few people at this time had cars out in rural America. Like I said before, the roads were so bad that a lot of places, the seed companies mostly sold mail order seeds. And then they were also limited by social norms and expectations. And so radio homemaking gave these women kind of like a mental escape from the difficulties of their lives.
There's also improved the lives of the radio homemakers themselves. They were offered a decent wage, did not come with stigma. It did not come with the same stigma as other wage jobs for women, and it was interesting work that allowed them control of their own finances.
Yeah. And I think that the way that the women presented their knowledge, so we said at the beginning of this show that they were different from, radio homemaking was different from home ec. So home ec was really trying to like kind of modernize the practices of domesticity, like the things that you do in your house, and kind of make them scientific, teach you better ways to do it. But radio homemaking was really more like an ongoing project. Listeners would write in and offer recipes and tips, and they were seen really as peers, the radio hosts and the listeners.
It's also showed the consumer power of women. So shows brought in hundreds of dollars each week from advertising. So this was a win for radio stations, too. They also wanted more radio homemakers.
Yeah, so it was a really positive time for women. And then just in doing this research, I thought there were some fun parallels to modern podcasting.
Yeah, so it's not uncommon for businesses to own a radio station. Sears and Roebuck owned a station in Chicago called WLS, World's Largest Store. In the case of KMA and KFNF, these each became their own companies, kind of that spun off.
And another good parallel I thought was that the radio host had a newsletter. There was a quote from Jessie Young in an article that I read about how she said, I have an unbroken record of subscriptions. Basically, like each month I always send out my newsletter. And that just kind of reminded me of like people sending out newsletters now and trying to always be consistent and never miss an email. Another parallel, which was, I guess, like more of a negative association, was that the aspect of working while your children are around kind of reminded me of mommy blogging, or women who like work at home and seem like they are also caring for children at the same time. I think one of the reasons the radio homemakers were so accepted is because radio homemaking is like an extension of women's kind of quote unquote natural duties, like being at home. And that just reminded me of influencers, home influencers, mommy blogging, all that seemed kind of like a radio 1926 version of something we've seen today. And while I was reading and preparing for the show, I was like, I feel a little bit like a radio homemaker. I'm writing notes and coming up with, trying to put it all together and make it interesting. But obviously our subject matter is a little bit different. No tips here. What's that?
Advice. We need letters in to give advice.
Yeah, we could use some letters. We'll share your tips. We probably won't offer recipes.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we did it. Yeah.
I think so.
What did you think of the Radio Homemakers, Sonia?
I thought it was really interesting. Like I said, I didn't know like anything about them, but I mean, yeah, to me, it's just podcasting did that in the 21st century. Now everybody has a podcast, and anybody can have a podcast.
Yeah.
And like, it sort of just opened up a lot more venues for people to find community. So.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. You can follow us. We're at Handmade History Podcast on Instagram and TikTok. And you can also email us at handmadehistoryhosts, HOSTS, @gmail.com. And subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye. What'd you say?
Did you just see how the edits go?